Okay. Welcome to No Way But North, where we talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them. My name is Cooper Lyons. My clean date is November 27th, 2010. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Big John Meldrum. How you doing, sir?
I'm good.
A little tired this morning.
I'm a little tired. I've been running and gunning for like the last
Running on fumes.
5 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. But I got my coffee, my North Point mug. You know what I'm saying?
You're here at No Way But North. No place you'd rather be on a Sunday.
Feels good.
That's what I like to
Feels
hear.
right. Beard's looking a little scraggly there, Cooper.
Wow, really?
But I love you. Mine is too. We need to go get lined up together.
But then you're just gonna steal my appointment, and I'm gonna sit there watching you talk to somebody else for an hour.
Probably.
Our guest today, on that note, is Crystal. Crystal is a Boise native who became a North Point alumnus in May of 2018. Crystal is an active member of 12-step programs throughout the Valley, sitting on many service committees, including the 2019 Western Area of Young People 12-step Conference in Boise. In December, Crystal experienced what many in recovery do, a relapse. She quickly made a decision to seek recovery and stood back up, and she's here to share with us her miracle of recovery. How you doing?
Good. How
Good?
are you?
Happy to be here?
Yeah.
A little nervous?
A little bit.
Which is totally okay.
It's just like drinking coffee and
Yeah.
chit-chatting.
The microphones and
That's-
cameras all disappear in about 5 minutes.
You say that. We'll
I
see.
do.
We'll see what happens.
All right. We'll make a bet. We'll see what we'll follow up. I thought you were going to say something, no?
I'm going to save it.
Oh boy.
Wait, question. Alumnus?
Yeah.
Alumnus.
Alumnus is a singular alumni.
What?
Alumni is a plural.
I'm gonna Google that later.
I thought
It's
like an
my-
alumnus was
okay.
like referring to like a...
Like I don't know the alumni.
I thought it was referring to like a female alumni, like alumnus.
You're alumnus of Syracuse.
It's fancy.
There you go. Guys, today's quote is the best way to lose yourself is to lose yourself in the service to others. Mahatma Gandhi. You actually came up with that quote. So when you hear that, what comes to your mind? What do you think about? And I'm sure it's 12-step service, right?
Yeah, I think about service. For me, you need to give away what you have in order to keep it. And so that quote kind of hits home for me on that. And service has just played a big role in my sobriety. So.
Okay. I like it. Well, yeah, and I touched on in your intro, you're on the service board for you're on the Western Area Young People's Conference. You were on your home group.
Which is amazing, by the way.
It was amazing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I got to
You
experience
got to go.
just a
yeah.
little bit of it.
A little bit.
It
You
was-
spoke on a panel, right?
Yeah, and I was told it was on the 9th step, but it was on 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I found out like 5 minutes
And you're like,
before
I'm
it
not that
started. I was like, well, no, I just wasn't prepared like at all. I was like, I've like prepared like something, you know? I thought about it a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah.
Cooper's a little
I just
OCD.
I had to wing
He
it.
can't. Yeah, he's not a good winger.
I'm not good
No,
on the spot.
not good on the spot.
I'm
yeah.
not.
I am. I'm brilliant with it.
Oh,
What do you think of when you hear that quote?
You read it for
Yeah,
me.
you're on the spot, right? Yeah.
Will you read it for me? This is tradition.
The best way to lose yourself is to lose yourself in the service to others. Mahatma Gandhi.
You know, when I hear that, just kind of based off of like what Crystal said, you know, giving back to others, especially within the program, recovery and stuff like that, is giving away what you know, right? Helping a fellow member, helping a fellow brother or sister with struggles, and giving experience and guidance.
Yeah, well, so for me, what I think about is whenever I was attacked at North Point and somebody was struggling with something and they were spinning out, right?
Yeah.
I would say, go talk to the guy that's been here for 3 days and is just coming out of his detox and is now can actually think clearly, because every second you're talking to him or her or whatever, you're not gonna even be thinking about your own issues.
yes.
That's really the amazing thing about 12-step programs to me is like I can completely forget what's going on in my life, the issues I have, the mortgage on my house, the problems with my relationship, the problems with my family, the problems with my dog getting into the garbage, whatever. Dude, she's been doing it so much lately. It's driving me nuts.
What happens when you get a rescue?
But I can like completely lose myself and just focus on trying to help them and be like, yeah, dude, I've been through that when I was, 3 days clean and so on and so forth. So thanks for that quote. That was a good one. So again, we're just kind of going to go through your story. So tell me how you kind of discovered drugs and alcohol. How old were you? Was there something going on in your life that kind of led to it, or was it the typical peer pressure thing? What happened?
So I had my first drink when I was 12. My family, my dad and my siblings, we would go to this like music concert thing where you like camp out as well.
Okay.
And it was like 3 days long. And my dad said, you can drink a couple beers, you know.
At the music festival.
At the music festival, just because, you know, we're out and camping kind of thing, whatever. And there was some kids there that were like my age. And so I had a couple beers and like they were sneaking alcohol too. And I was like, you know what, I want to get drunk because I have seen my parents drunk. I'm just really curious at this point. And so I ended up drinking like 12 PBRs, and it was so gross. It was so gross. But
That's like the pure sign of an alcoholic, because I remember the first time I smoked tobacco, I was like, this is awful.
But you keep doing it.
This is terrible.
Yeah. But it's like, but I want the effect. And that's how I started using alcohol. And it was the same with drugs. It was like, you know, it's always for effect.
So when you started drinking like that, did you feel like even like after the festival was over, the camp out, did you feel like the urge to continue drinking?
Yeah, I mean, at that point I was 12, so it was like, it's really
that
hard.
was fun.
You know, it's hard to get your hands on it too.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was definitely very intrigued. And so at that point, after, you know, I got drunk the first time, I really just wanted to feel different. I wanted to not feel like me. And it was like the social lubricant. It was the first time that I felt like I fit in with my peers. And so at that point, it was like I was going to try anything that I could get my hands on. And at that age, it's, you know, various things that you can get your hands on. But so I was about 12. I smoked weed the first time when I was 12, and I had my first cigarette when I was 12. And same deal. Like I hated it, but I loved the way that it felt. And when I was 13, I went into junior high, and that's when I started kind of buying oxycodone, Norco. There was a boy in math class that would sell me Adderall.
A lot more resources open up when you go
to junior
high school.
Yes, and, you know, started smoking weed more, and we'd sneak like alcohol in and stuff. And anyways, so that's kind of just how I started off, and, you know, things just progressed. By the time I was 15, I was kind of in and out of high school. I wasn't able to really just like continuously go. So I was kind of doing online school, and then going back. And I had a boyfriend that was a lot older than I was. So I was 15 and he was like 19.
Okay.
He was a senior, like a super senior. So he'd been there for a little bit. But I pretty much, at that point, I was living with my mom, or my grandma. My mom was in prison, and my dad was kind of just out of the picture. And so I kind of just shoved grandma around, like, this is what I'm going to do, and you can't really stop me.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really spend much time at home, and that's kind of just when things got out of control for me. I was drinking a lot. I started using the harder drugs, started doing cocaine, Molly, and all that. I graduated early, which was really interesting. I went to an alternative school.
Hey, still, being in full-on active addiction and graduating early, graduating at all is a feat.
Yeah.
So
Yes. I was really surprised that I did it. So I was 17 when I graduated.
Okay.
And at that point, I moved out of grandma's, and I moved in to this like party house where we lived. That's when I think the turning point for me was where it was like, that's when I became an addict or an alcoholic.
Yeah, your life started to surround drugs and alcohol.
And it was, so this house, we partied every day, we drank all the time, and at that point, you know, I'm still taking anything that is put in front of me. And so like one thing leads to another, and I end up doing meth, and as soon as I did it, you know how they say don't do it once.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh no, I'm different. I've been able to put it down before, put other things down. I got this, right? So, as soon as I started, I never stopped.
That was what you were looking for, right? Is that what it was for you? Because I know when I found painkillers, I was like, oh my God, like this is exactly what I've been looking for my entire life.
Like
I don't have to feel anything. That hole in my chest is filled. Like I don't have to like worry about what's going on around me or through my head.
Yeah. So alcohol did that for me for a long time. Well, a long time. But so in 2017, my friend Chase, we were really close, like growing up. He killed himself when he was drunk. And so alcohol stopped doing the trick for me.
Yeah.
And so there's like this 3-day period where it was like I was still drinking, but it wasn't like making that stop. And it wasn't making him come back. Like it wasn't making that stop hurting. And so that's when I messaged someone that I knew had gotten into like a different crowd and stuff. And that's when I tried meth for the first time. And that's what made that pain stop. And so, yeah, it was like that. That's what I was looking for. And so I spent quite a while, about a year and a half doing that. And it takes things from you really quickly. It's really rapid progression. It's just kind of it's a very sad way to live, but got to the point, so in April of 2018, I got to the point where it was like, I was at the turning point again where it's like I can't live with it and I can't live without it. And I had lost just pretty much everything. The only thing I had was my car and, some clothes. Had no job. My parents weren't talking to me. I didn't have a job. Like, my boyfriend just left me. And it was like one thing after another, like in a period of like a week.
Yeah. Well, it was probably some build up.
Yes, yeah.
Right, okay.
But like everything just seemed to fall apart, like
In that period, okay.
just like everything, like I wasn't able to maintain this facade that everything was okay anymore. Wasn't able to pay rent.
Yep.
Wasn't able to afford more drugs. That was
Which is what you really cared about.
Which was the hardest part.
That was
right?
the hard one, yeah.
Everything's falling apart, and I can't
even get,
I can't get high.
Yeah, so it's getting to this point where it's like I was about to run out of money, about to run out of drugs, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to stop.
Yep.
And it was to the point where it's like, even if I don't have money, I'm going to get drugs. And so I just felt so hopeless. I just was at this point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I called my mom, and she had been waiting for that phone call for a little bit,
sure.
Yeah. Because I hadn't been talking to my family at all. And I called her and I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do, and I think I need to go to rehab because I don't know what to do, and I need to get away from this. Mm-hmm. So I had already actually looked at North Point like way back when I was drinking, like before I'd ever used meth. I had looked at North Point because I had a friend who went there.
Okay. So you had already kind of considered that you might have a problem
with
that
alcohol.
You need help with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it started way back then.
But then you completely forgot about that when you found meth.
Yeah.
Like kind of how it works?
Well, I quit,
or you
I
just
quit drinking.
You decided to not. Oh,
Yeah.
So you thought you didn't have a problem with meth?
No, I thought I had a problem with that too. No, I had a problem with everything.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I looked into North Point actually like 3 times throughout using. A lot of it was because like I had a normie boyfriend, and like he kept figuring out it's kind of obvious, you know. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to rehab. Like I promise, I'm gonna get sober. And so I looked into North Point, would like tell him the story about how I'm gonna go do this, and I never did it because he would stay with me. And so at the point when he like left me and everything just like started falling apart, I was like, okay, like I have no options really. So I called North Point and talked to one of the people, and they were so nice. You know, there's like a lot of anxiety and stuff about going, you know, and they kept calling me and checking up on me like that week before I was going. Like they'd call me almost every day and be like, hey, like, are we still like good? How are you doing?
Do you remember their name?
What's his name?
Zach.
Zach.
Yeah. Kudos to Zach.
Yeah. Zach called me a couple times, and then there was also a female that I talked
Sean.
to. Okay. Yeah. They were great.
Yeah, their missions team is pretty.
Yeah, big ups to the admissions team.
Yeah. So I had about a week, and there was like a lot of nerves that week with my family, with me. Like, is she really gonna do it? Am I really gonna do it? And then you guys, North Point, called me, and they're like, hey, we have an opening a little bit earlier than we expected. Would you like to take it? And I was like, no. Like, and I like hung up, and then I was like, I probably should go, you know. And so I called them back. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be there. And it was like the next day or something. And so I just packed all my stuff up and drove my car to my mom's, like left all my stuff over there. And then she just drove me to rehab, and that's where recovery started for me, I was absolutely terrified going
As you
in there.
should be, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty normal.
I just remember being really scared. And everyone was really nice there. I loved the shower where you could sit down and like just detox in there. And they let me sleep a bunch at first, and
At first.
yeah,
You
at
were.
first.
Now you gotta get out of bed.
I detoxed really quick too because I was about 90 pounds, and so
I remember you were tiny.
so like everything gets out of your system so quick. So I was
Yeah.
like, God damn it, I have to start doing stuff. But it was and I ended up liking it near the end. But what was great about North Point was getting introduced to AA. I knew that AA existed, but I had no idea that that would be for me. And at first I didn't even listen in the meetings. I was like, this is stupid. I want to go home and sleep, or back to North Point and sleep. But eventually, like, I started hearing these things in the meetings, like, being repeated, which is get a sponsor, read the big book, go to meetings every day. Like, these things that everybody says in the meetings over and over and over.
The cliches.
Get a service position.
Yep.
Get a home group. And so, like, I'm hearing these things. I'm like, okay, this is some direction to do when I get out. And so, yeah, I got out of North Point in May 20th.
Yes. That's, I believe, what I put in, May 2018.
And my mom picked me up. I went and got Taco Bell. I had been, like, waiting for that. I was like, Mom, I need Taco Bell and a milkshake when I get out of here.
My first release meal.
What was the... So I know 12 steps are obviously, like, that's the long term.
Yeah.
What was it like to get into, like, some of the processing and the education and, like, the healthy lifestyle skills, like yoga and eating, so you're not 90 pounds.
Yeah,
and
so
stuff
you're not
like
dying.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
I loved yoga. I still do yoga today.
Nice.
Very,
Cool.
very frequently. I actually still sometimes see Mary, who teaches yoga. I liked the educational part a lot, where they talked about how it works in your brain and the fact that it is a disease of the brain, and like they explain like the midbrain and how that
Neurobiology of
yeah. What was his name? Dan
Arnold.
And he would get up there and he would like draw on the board and he'd be like, so like passionate about it. And I remember just being like, this is really cool, and like actually absorbing that information.
Well, because you're like, oh my God, that's like why my brain shuts off and like all I can think about is getting high.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me when I went to Ashford. It was like, oh, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like there's actually something going on in my brain that like explains what I'm feeling.
Yeah. And like knowing that your brain has been damaged, so that's why you're not feeling happy right away. And having that explain that it's going to get better, because I was afraid that I was going to be permanently that way.
Yeah.
And knowing that's why like I put everything, my drug above everything, because literally in my brain it's the most important thing. So that was really cool, and processing was very helpful. Kind of broke the ice with being able to be honest with others. But I have a little bit of like a foggy memory of that time.
Which is fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I got out and I went to a meeting the first day I went out, because that's what everyone said to do.
Yep.
And so I went to a meeting. One of the techs at North Point had gave me this woman's number, and he said, you should call this woman and have her be your sponsor, because he knew her personally. And I didn't listen at first. I was like, I don't want to call someone I don't know. So about 2 weeks later, he saw me again. He's like, hey, did you call her? And I'm like, no. He's like, go call her right now. And so I did, and she answered, and I was like, God damn it. And so I was like, hey, like, explain the situation. And so yeah, anyway, she became my sponsor. We met up, and like she started taking me through the book. Started giving me suggestions, and I started listening, just because I didn't want to live that way that I was living anymore. At that point, I wasn't willing to go to any lengths with something, so I didn't always take all of her suggestions.
You were not willing to go
to any lengths. there's just certain things where I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I was willing to do a lot of other things.
Hey, gotta start somewhere.
Right? So yeah, started working the steps with the sponsor, read the big book, and she strongly suggested getting a service position. She was involved with the Wacky Paw committee, and so she like dragged me along to one of the committee meetings, and it was really cool being around, seeing all these young people, and they're having like fun, you know, as fun as a business meeting can be, right? So then I come back the next week, and once you go there for 2 weeks, you can start voting. So I'm like able to vote on these business things. I'm like, oh, hey, this is cool. You know, I have a little bit of like power here.
Feel the power.
No, but it was cool feeling like, you know, something like.
You're contributing.
Yeah, like.
Making a difference. Yeah.
And I think that's something that I really struggled with prior to ever using, when using, and after getting sober, is that feeling that I have no purpose. And so that's where service really played like a big role for me, giving me some purpose to help others.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a service position at Wacky Paw about like a month after going. Got my first service position.
Cool. Okay.
I was the marathon meeting chair, so I like facilitated who was gonna be doing like chairing each marathon meeting. And then I picked up a second chair position there, which was the co-inReach chair. And then the inReach person stepped down, so I ended up having two like full-on chair positions. And it was really nice having that accountability every week. And inReach, you reach out to everybody. It's kind of like what your job is. You like kind of, but like
keep everybody together and moving along.
Inform them, make events, stuff like that, which was really amazing.
Keeps you connected too.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I was working through the steps with a sponsor.
Going to Ashwood.
I went through all the levels of care at Ashwood.
So you were on.
I went to PHP.
PHP, IOP, OP, continuing care.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm currently in continuing care right now.
Okay, cool.
But my insurance did like bump me down each time, so I did move through it a little bit quicker than normal. Sorry, I'm kind of blanking.
You're good. So you kind of went through Ashwood. What was the Ashwood experience like? Because I know a lot of people, you know, they get out of North Point just 24/7 for 28 days, and then they, you know, are launched into 30 days or 30 hours a week, and that can kind of feel like a lot. But I think you really embraced it and were trying to get as much out of it as you could.
Yeah. You mean like PHP and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the whole Ashwood experience.
Yeah, I was.
Or outpatient.
I knew that it was beneficial to go. And you know, there were some days where I didn't want to go, but I still did because every time I go, I would always take something out of it. It's the same with meetings and stuff, but I had that feeling of like I want to finish this too. You know, I started off at North Point. I want to go through the whole thing. So yeah, I went down from PHP to IOP, and that's kind of when I got a job and was able to still go to IOP and
Started putting together a life.
Started putting together my life again. You know, I got a job, was able to like start paying off some debt that I had collected, like paying off my credit cards, repairing relationships with family members. I got my dog back. Like my grandma had been watching my dog for like 2 years because I couldn't take care of another living thing.
Yeah.
So like slowly but surely things started, you know, coming back together. And I think that's kind of where I started kind of getting complacent after a while. And that was like one of the things I said at the beginning, like, I am not going to get complacent. Like, I'm not, that's not going to be me. But it just happens.
It creeps up on you.
Yeah.
I've 100% been complacent where I go to like less than one meeting a week for a period of time. And I'm like,
Or just no meetings a week.
well, that's what I mean. Like less than one meeting a week. It's like
no
one a
meetings.
month. One a month or
No
something.
meetings
like
a
that.
week.
It sounds better than saying
Exactly. Hey,
I mean,
I'm a
hey,
wordsmith.
spin it however you want, Coop.
No, but like when you're feeling good, right? That's when it's really hard to work
yeah.
a recovery program. Because working a recovery program is hard. Like I have to look at myself and like figure out where I can improve and like then actually try to improve
Yeah.
and like say sorry to people when I don't really want to, but I know I should. It's like why would like I feel fine. Like why would I what is my motivation for doing
Exactly.
those things?
Well, what would you say when you got to Ashwood, when you were in the outpatient program? What would you say, other than the complacency, was your biggest struggle? Like reintroducing back into society, out of the inpatient setting, you know, kind of starting to function on your own, kind of getting back in the groove of things.
What was my biggest struggle?
Or the biggest hurdle you had to overcome.
Just in sobriety.
Yeah. Well, yeah, within that first 60 days out of North Point.
The first 60 days, my biggest hurdle was going through a breakup and like a lot of relationship stuff. You know, they say don't date in the first year for a reason.
Yeah.
And some of us are slow learners. That was probably the biggest hurdle for me. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that was probably one of the hardest, just because like you have all those feelings of like wanting, like what's the point?
Yeah.
And wanting to go back out just because you don't have that person in your life
And
anymore.
loneliness.
Yeah.
And like
Boredom.
not knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Like feeling like that, losing yourself, but not in the best way.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes we replace one thing for another, and that's kind of what I did at first. So
Yeah.
I was in a relationship for my first like 6 months of sobriety. Different relationships.
That's right.
Different.
Yep.
But I did learn my lesson, so.
Yeah, okay. So what would you say to anybody out there that's thinking about getting into a relationship before they have a year or have worked through the steps?
Don't do it.
Just don't.
Just don't. But, you know, that's like easier said than done. And a lot of us
100%.
are really stubborn.
I'm the same way. I got into a relationship with I was a junior in high school. She was a freshman in college. She just discovered drinking, and I was in the middle of my 4th step.
It's like the worst.
Yeah, it was a shit show.
The worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
So, okay, so complacency. So when you're looking back on it, like so that was where it started. What was the next kind of just steps that brought you to that relapse? And then your relapse was really short. So like what I'm sure service was part of it.
Yeah.
You still were in contact with your sponsor and going to Ashwood. What else kind of brought you back from your relapse after, it was like a week, right?
Yeah, so leading up to the relapse drift for me kind of started when things started going really well. I had got a new job with someone like who was in recovery. So I'm a barista right now, and like that's something that I've wanted to do for a while. So things were just like going really good. I had got through my 4th step. I had 5th stepped, and I was on the 6th step now. And that was kind of like my big goal, was like getting past that 4th step, because you hear people
Yeah.
go back out on their 4th step and all that. So it's like, I'm gonna get past that. My sponsor had nobody who had gotten past step 4, and so I was like, that's my goal. So I got past that, and I was like, oh well, I feel a lot better. So those defects, you know, I don't really need to work on them, right? So I kind of stopped working my steps pretty suddenly after I got past step 4. You know, I kind of like half did them in my step 6, and once I had to start writing on it, I was like, this is just like another 4th step, and I'm good. So I stopped working on my steps just because I felt really good. I stopped going to meetings as much because I was working, you know, full time. I was just, you know, doing other like activities. I had Wacky Paw going on, and so I was like, you know, maybe I don't need to go to as many meetings. You know, maybe just like two a week or something. And at this point, you know, I only have like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that much clean time, but that for me feels like, you know, I've got years.
Yeah.
Totally.
For sure.
And I'm like, I'm doing so well. Why continue doing this? Like, you know, like I'm a drowning man, you
Yeah.
know?
What's my motivation?
Exactly.
Yep.
I slowly stopped talking to my sponsor on a regular basis because I was like, you know, like I just need to talk to her when I'm having problems, and besides that, I don't really need to talk to her, you know. So I stopped. I eventually stopped reaching out to her completely, and I stopped working my steps completely, and I stopped going to meetings. It was about 2 weeks of that, doing nothing for my recovery besides service.
Yep.
And I like wasn't reaching out or anything. And so what led up to the relapse was hanging out. I had a newcomer friend. She has like been in and out.
Yep.
And she was like, hey, like, you want to hang out? Like, I've been having a hard time. And me, like, Miss 7 months over here was like, oh yeah, like I could be of use to her, right? So I go hang out, and when you get two people who are still in early recovery together, you can start talking and start thinking things are a good idea. That's what happened. I had like twisted this story around about why I was, why this was justifiable to go use again. And we both had the same drug of choice, which is like, just don't hang out with someone in early recovery with the same drug of choice alone.
When you haven't been working your steps or going to meetings.
Yes, like I obviously like had already made up my mind that was what was going to happen, but I didn't consciously like, oh, I'm going to go relapse.
Well, you kind of get into that, like, it's almost a delusion.
It is.
Like, you forget what's going on, and like that you're an alcoholic and you're an addict, and what that means for you if you use.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So you relapsed for about a week.
Yeah, it was actually only like 4 days.
Okay. So then how did it happen for you that you got back into the program, that you started working steps, reached out to your sponsor, or whatever happened?
Mm-hmm. So I relapsed on a Wednesday, and then I used till Saturday. And on Sunday, we have our Wacky Paw, we had our Wacky Paw like committee meetings on Sundays. And so I knew that I had to go to that. And like while I was relapsing, I was still doing my service position, which you shouldn't really do, but like I was still sending out texts and stuff like for the InReach, like when people were like wanting me to like, so I was still doing that. Like it was only like 4 days.
But that's crazy. There's no way in hell I would do anything related to any 12-step program at all if I was using. So good for you. Like, you really cared about that service position.
I did.
That's great.
And so yeah, on Sunday I was like, I'm gonna have to go to this committee meeting. And mind you, I work for someone in recovery, so like I'm going to work loaded. Yeah. For someone that is in recovery. And obviously, like, so he didn't know that I was necessarily high, but he knew something that was off, after like 2 days. Yep. And so he pulled me to the side on Sunday before the committee meeting, because I worked that night, and he pulled me aside and he's like, what's going on? He's like, something is wrong. And I wasn't planning on telling anybody. I was just planning on stopping and, I'm good. I'm just going to keep my clean date and I'm going to lie. And like, as soon as he asked me that, I like broke out and tears, and I was like, told him, and truth spilled out. And anyways,
the head full of 12 steps and a belly full of booze or drugs do not mix.
Does not mix. No. It was actually a really terrible relapse. Was not at all what I had hyped it up to be in my head.
It never is.
It never is. But some of us have to, slow learners.
No,
we got to figure it out ourselves.
Well, that's part of your story, right? Like, there's going to be somebody out there that's thinking about doing the same thing, and will hear you share that and be like, oh, shit. Okay.
Like, don't do it.
Maybe I shouldn't.
Especially like with an inpatient, I love the people that are like, listen, I got this. I got this. Like, and then they bolt. And then they go out and they use.
Come back like 3 days later.
And then, or even like the next morning, they come back and they're like, please, can I come back? Like, it was the worst mistake. It's not fun. I can't believe this happened. Like, I had this great idea. Like, nobody's talking to me. It's just miserable. And I'm like, like sometimes people have to learn the hard way. Like, it's a shitty thing for people to have to go through. But like, sometimes that's
and then everybody
way.
else in inpatient's like, oh.
Yeah, I guess it's not great.
Yeah, maybe I should actually.
Everybody was like having this idea, like, oh man, he had a solid plan when he was leaving. Like, nah, it didn't work.
Didn't work.
Nah.
Oh, that sounds about right. Okay, so then basically, what is this time? Well, sorry, were you done telling? So, broke into tears.
Oh, yes. So, I went to the committee meeting, came out to everybody. So really that service position is what kept me, that was my last like string to AA, and that's what brought me back so quick. Because there's like 5 things that my sponsor wants me to do every day, and I was still doing one of those things, and that was service. So that is what made me come back so quick to
Love it.
To recovery.
And then, so how has this time around been different? 'Cause it's been about 4 months? 5 months now? Okay.
December, right?
Yeah, December 16th, 2018 is my sobriety date. So
it's all right,
I
Cooper.
almost have
Math
2
is not
months.
your forte, buddy.
It's not at all.
What was it like coming back to Ashwood and talking to your counselor and talking to your group and stuff about your relapse?
I was so embarrassed and scared, and it was really a humbling experience. And I was really afraid to tell my counselor because she was just so like, I felt like she was so proud of me and stuff. And so I was like so sad to have to do it. But the amazing thing about telling everybody, literally everybody, was that no one reacted the way that I imagined. Like everyone was like, welcome me back with like, you know, their arms open, and no one like put me down for it. And especially in like group and stuff, everyone's like, it happens, you know? And of course I'm beating myself up over it. I think it's the worst thing ever, but it does happen. Relapse is a lot of, you know, part of a lot of people's stories. So, and so it was, you know, it was a humbling experience, but it was really cool to have that support from Ashwood. So this time's been a little bit different. Just because I think for a lot of that time after I got out of North Point, I still had a lot of like cravings and a lot of things circling around in my head, like, well, you know, trying to play it out, like how I could probably use again in moderation or...
Well, in relationships that you talked about, stuff like that.
Yeah. A lot of that was squashed after I relapsed, like knowing that I can't, like, it just proved a lot of things wrong that were in my head. Like, the fact that...
Got rid of all those reservations. Like,
yes.
I can't use like a normal
person. Use like a normal person. No one can use meth like a normal person.
I'd be like, hey, I use meth like a gentleman or a lady.
A big one was in my head, I'm going to get so high because I haven't used in so long. Right? That was the biggest one for me. I was like, it's going to be amazing. Like, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. In fact, it takes more because you got this head full of AA and you're like, it just doesn't work. So it squashed a lot of that. And so this time around, like, I literally really haven't had any urges to use.
That's good.
And it's been amazing. But that doesn't mean that I can't, you know, that I shouldn't work the program.
Of course.
So this time I'm actually taking suggestions.
All of them.
All of them, for the most part. The one I still struggle with is calling a woman every day. Because I feel like I'm inconveniencing them, you know, to call and talk to somebody every day. But I pretty much do everything else. Go to meetings every day, work in my steps. And, I know that if I don't do it, that I will end up where I was last time. You know, I'll end up using again.
You do the same thing, you're going to get the same results.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I got to change it up a little bit. I'm not dating anymore. It's been
Like,
4 months.
Good.
Going strong.
Solid.
Yeah. And it's really amazing being single and working through your steps because you get to have distance between that stuff and you get to like really look at like your dynamic with relationships with other people.
Yeah.
Because you're not in one. So you can be like, this is, you know, I really act, you know, a certain way.
Yeah, well, it's also shitty because you're like, wow,
Like, I
suck.
Well, it's always funny that, like, you know, like when we make these suggestions, like when you hear these suggestions about dating and being in relationships and stuff, you know, coming out of inpatient or going to A or NA, it's because you look at, like, for example, like you have 4 months where you haven't dated. And so, like, you can look at these relationships that other people have and you're like, that is so dysfunctional. Like, I can't even believe that, like, I was in anything similar to like that at one point in time. And it's a huge part of, like, trying to discover who you are as an individual without somebody else pressuring you or having, you know, expectations or that, you know, nasty little thing called codependency.
Which a lot of us have.
Yeah, I mean, addicts and non-addicts alike, right? Yeah. So I think it's so huge. Like, if anything, like I tell people when I work with clients, I'm just like, listen, I get the idea of being lonely. I hate being lonely. I hate being alone. I'm codependent 100%. But like getting yourself to a point where you know yourself, you love yourself, right? That you can establish boundaries and with not only yourself, but with other people. And it's really hard to do that in early recovery with somebody that like wants all of your time. And so like, I love to hear the fact that you were like 4 months, like, I'm cool.
It's hard,
Yeah. Well, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Of course.
but it is beneficial, and it gets easier, you know. Just like
Careful, it
anything
gets really easy when you just want to sit on your couch and with your dog. Trust me.
else. Well, and you know, as even
Cooper,
talking
it's not about
it,
you.
I'm just saying, I'm just sharing my experience, strength, and hope.
He just sits on the couch with his dog. He's like, this is great.
This is everything I need.
But, you know, something that's helped me with that lonely aspect, and it talks about it in the big book, is service and fellowship. If you are, you know,
Wait, can you say that one more time in the mic?
service and fellowship.
There you go. There you go.
And that, like, especially after Wacky Paw, I fellowship all the time now. So yeah, Wacky Paw happened January 3rd. So I had only been sober for like 2 weeks. And it was like life changing.
Was that the big conference you guys
Yeah.
had? Yeah.
It's a young people. It's insane.
I've heard it's pretty
It's like
amazing.
the most recovery and also like
Fun.
disease a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit
Just
of disease.
because of people like not sleeping, drinking like
So many
4
energy
Red Bulls
drinks.
an hour, like just run. It's a little insane, but it's
it's
awesome.
Amazing, yeah.
Yes.
And so having that, like after being like 2 weeks sober and literally not thinking about myself, just being there and being of service and trying to make this conference happen, like lit me on fire for recovery.
Good.
So yeah, I don't know. That was so much fun.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I get this out of you before we run out of time, which I think we're just right about there. So, say somebody's where you were at, you know, 2 weeks before Wacky Paw. What would you say to them? Somebody's thinking about relapsing. What would you want them to know?
I don't know. It kind of depends on the situation.
What are the basics? What do you wish you would have done? What do you wish somebody would have told you?
Ooh, I don't know.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I don't know, because the thing is, I'm really stubborn, and like once I think that relapse needed to happen for me to be where I am now. But I think if I was on the, you know, trying to help someone who is about to relapse, like dragging them to a meeting if possible, and just trying to get them in the middle of the herd, like
Yeah.
they say, you know, like inviting them out. Like a lot of people who are newcomers, I'll invite them out to our fellowship events and try to get them involved in service. Like really talk up Wacky Paw and be like, you know, you should really like start coming, and because those things are what worked for me. And that's all I have to really offer is what has worked for me.
Yeah.
But all I know is like getting involved in that fellowship is what saved me. So.
Well, and the one other thing is, no matter what they decide to do, the 12-step program will always welcome them back with open arms.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether they relapse or not, you are always welcome here. You always have a seat.
Yeah. And that can be hard to remember. I remember being terrified. But it's amazing when you come back, and that's the situation is everybody is just happy to see you come back.
Yep.
It's a great feeling.
For sure.
Okay. Crystal, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Okay.
me.
Guys, if you got any value out of this video, please make sure you leave a review and just tell one friend about it that you think would get value also. This is No Way But North, where we talk about the miracles of recovery and the tools used to achieve them.
Peace.
If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, call 1-877-648-3125. The views and opinions expressed in No Way But North do not reflect those of North Point Recovery or any other institution or organization.